Hello, friends. I hope you all are having a good time. Today, I will elaborate how to nurture your personality by changing the way you see yourself. Let's dive deeper into why this is so important. Most people live their lives like passengers on a train. The train has a set track and it's moving, but they have no control over where it's going. They follow what society tells them, what their family expects, or what they think they should be doing. But living like that without a clear purpose often leads to dissatisfaction. You feel like you're moving, but are you really going somewhere? Starting with why gives you the clarity to get off the train, pick your own path, and decide where you want to go. Purpose acts like a beacon. It doesn't mean every day will be easy, but it gives you the resilience to keep going when the challenges arise. Take Zig Ziglar's work, for instance. He wasn't just selling ideas about success, he was giving people tools to change their lives. He had a deeply ingrained sense of purpose to uplift others, to help them see their potential. That's what kept him energized for decades. It wasn't the money or the recognition, it was the profound belief that his work was meaningful. Now, think about your own life. Have you ever felt stuck? Like you were just going through the motions? That's often a sign that you're disconnected from your why. When you have clarity about your purpose, even mundane tasks feel significant. Suddenly, you're not just working a job, you're contributing to something bigger. You're not just running errands, you're fulfilling a role that aligns with your values. Here's the truth: purpose doesn't have to be grandiose. You don't need to be curing diseases or solving world hunger. Purpose can be as simple as wanting to be a great parent, supporting your community, or creating something beautiful. What matters is that it resonates with you, that it feels authentic. I want to share another story. Imagine two people in the same position, let's say they're teachers. One teacher sees their job as a paycheck. They show up, do the minimum, and count down the hours until the weekend. The other teacher sees their role as shaping the next generation. They pour their heart into every lesson, connect with their students, and take pride in seeing them grow. Same role, same circumstances, but two entirely different mindsets. The difference. The second teacher knows their why. This brings me to a critical point: purpose isn't always about changing what you do. Sometimes it's about changing how you see what you do. Reframing your perspective can help you discover purpose in places you never expected. Look for the impact of your actions. Ask yourself, who benefits from what I do? How does this make a difference, even in small ways? Another powerful way to uncover your purpose is by paying attention to what frustrates you. Often our strongest sense of purpose comes from wanting to fix a problem we deeply care about. Zig Ziglar once said that he saw so many people struggling with self-doubt and poor habits, and it frustrated him. That frustration fueled his mission to help people see their potential and create better lives. Here's something else to keep in mind: your why will evolve. It's not fixed. As you grow and change, so will your purpose. What drives you in your 20s might not be the same in your 50s. And that's okay. The key is to remain curious, to keep asking yourself those deep questions. What do I care about? What impact do I want to have? Let me share an example from business. Many successful companies are built on a strong sense of purpose. Think about Apple. They didn't start by asking, what product should we make? They started with a belief to challenge the status quo and think differently. That belief became their why, and it's the reason their products resonate so deeply with people. Customers don't just buy what Apple makes, they buy into why Apple makes it. The same principle applies to your life. When you lead with your why, people are drawn to you not just for what you do, but for the passion and authenticity behind it. Purpose has a magnetic quality. It inspires trust, connection, and loyalty, whether in personal relationships or professional endeavors. Another thing to consider is how your purpose aligns with your strengths. When you're working in harmony with your natural talents, your why feels even more powerful. It's like finding the sweet spot where your skills, passions, and values intersect. Take some time to reflect on what you're good at, what you love to do, and how those things can serve others. That's where your purpose often lies. Let me stop here for a moment and ask you, how do you define success? For many people, success is tied to external metrics, money, titles, achievements. But true success, the kind that brings fulfillment, comes from living in alignment with your why. When your actions reflect your purpose, success becomes a byproduct, not the goal. I want you to imagine a life where everything you do is connected to your purpose. Think about the energy, the joy, the sense of accomplishment that would bring. That's not just a dream, it's achievable. But it starts with taking the time to discover your why and then having the courage to live it. Focus on progress, not perfection. Think about how often we hold ourselves back because we're waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect conditions. The truth is, perfection is an illusion. It doesn't exist, and chasing it only creates unnecessary pressure and fear. What really matters is progress, the small, incremental steps that move us closer to our goals. If we focus on progress instead of perfection, we free ourselves to grow, learn, and achieve in ways we never imagined. Let's start with the idea that perfectionism often paralyzes us. It's easy to think, I'll start when everything's just right, or I can't put this out there until it's flawless, but the reality is, waiting for perfection usually means we never start. Progress, on the other hand, doesn't require everything to be perfect, it just requires action. When you focus on taking the next step, no matter how small, you're moving forward, and forward is the direction that counts. Consider how children learn to walk. They don't wait until they're sure they won't fall. They just start one step at a time, falling and getting up again. Imagine if a child decided not to try walking until they could do it perfectly. They'd never walk at all. We understand this with children, but somewhere along the way we lose that mindset for ourselves. We forget that falling and getting back up is part of the process. Progress is messy, and that's okay. Messy progress is still progress. In fact, it's through the messiness that we learn and improve. Perfection, on the other hand, doesn't teach us anything. It's static, rigid, and unattainable. If you're waiting for perfection, you're not giving yourself the chance to grow. Think about this in terms of a journey. If you're hiking up a mountain, you don't focus on leaping to the top in one perfect step. You focus on putting one foot in front of the other. You might stumble, take a wrong turn, or get tired, but as long as you keep moving, you're making progress. And with each step, you're learning, adapting, and getting closer to your goal. One of the biggest obstacles to embracing progress is fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough. But here's the thing, failure is part of progress. Every misstep, every setback is an opportunity to learn and grow. Perfection doesn't allow for that. It demands that we get it right the first time, which is not how life works. Let me tell you a story. Imagine you're building a house. You wouldn't wait to finish the roof until every wall is painted perfectly. You'd focus on laying the foundation, putting up the walls, and adding the roof one step at a time. The house doesn't need to be perfect in every phase to be a home. In the same way, your efforts don't need to be perfect to be meaningful. Progress requires patience and persistence. It's about showing up every day, even when it's hard, even when you don't feel like it. It's about doing the work, knowing that each small step adds up over time. And here's the beauty of it: when you focus on progress, you start to build momentum. Each step forward fuels the next one, creating a cycle of growth and improvement. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't aim for excellence. Striving for high standards is a good thing, but there's a difference between excellence and perfection. Excellence is about doing your best and continuing to improve. Perfection is about meeting an impossible standard that doesn't allow room for mistakes or growth. Let's talk about self-compassion, because it's a key part of focusing on progress. When you're too hard on yourself, when you expect perfection, you're more likely to give up. But when you treat yourself with kindness and recognize your efforts, you create an environment where progress can thrive. Celebrate your wins, no matter how small. Acknowledge your efforts, even when the outcome isn't perfect. Think about the concept of the 10,000-hour rule. Mastery takes time and effort. Nobody becomes an expert overnight. The people who achieve great things do so because they focus on the process, not on being perfect from the start. They embrace progress, knowing that each hour they put in gets them closer to their goal. Let's look at how this applies to leadership. A great leader doesn't wait until they have all the answers or the perfect plan. They take action, make decisions, and learn from the results. They understand that progress, even imperfect progress, is better than stagnation. In fact, showing vulnerability and a willingness to learn often inspires trust and respect. Here's another example. Think about creativity. If an artist waited to create the perfect piece, they'd never pick up a brush. If a writer waited for the perfect sentence, they'd never write a word. Creativity flourishes in the space between imperfection and progress. It's about experimenting, taking risks, and learning from the process. Progress is also about focusing on what you can control. You can't control every outcome and you can't guarantee perfection, but you can control your effort, your attitude, and your willingness to keep going. When you focus on what you can do today, right now, you're making progress. The journey of progress is deeply personal. It's not about comparing yourself to others or meeting someone else's standards. It's about becoming better than you were yesterday. When you focus on your own path and your own path and your own growth, you free yourself from the burden of perfection. Imagine if every day you committed to being just 1% better than the day before. Over time, those small improvements add up to something extraordinary. That's the power of progress. It's not flashy or dramatic, it's steady, consistent, and transformative. Let's circle back to the idea of resilience because progress demands it. There will be setbacks, challenges, and moments when you feel like giving up, but resilience is what keeps you moving forward. It's the ability to adapt, to learn, and to keep going even when things aren't perfect. To reframe failure as feedback. Failure is one of the most misunderstood concepts in our lives. When we hear the word failure, most of us think about loss, inadequacy, or embarrassment. But what if we change that narrative? What if instead of seeing failure as an endpoint, we started viewing it as feedback? Because that's all failure truly is: a signal, a teacher, an opportunity to learn. Failure doesn't mean you're not good enough, it means you're in the process of becoming better. When you reframe failure as feedback, you take away its power to paralyze you. You stop fearing it. Instead, you start using it. Think of failure as a compass. It points you toward what doesn't work so you can find what does. It's part of the journey, not the destination. If you're afraid of failure, you're afraid of learning. And if you're afraid of learning, how can you ever grow? Let's think about the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. In a fixed mindset, failure is a threat. It's something to avoid because it challenges your sense of competence. But in a growth mindset, failure is essential. It's part of the process of becoming better. People with a growth mindset understand that every setback is an opportunity to gain insight and improve. They don't take failure personally, they take it productively. Consider the stories of some of the greatest innovators and leaders. Thomas Edison famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Edison didn't see failure as a reason to give up. He saw it as feedback, a way to refine his approach and eventually succeed. That's the mindset we need to adopt in our own lives. Reframing failure starts with the questions you ask yourself. Instead of saying, "Why did I fail?" ask, "What can I learn from this? What did this experience teach me about myself, my approach, or my assumptions?" When you ask the right questions, failure becomes a powerful tool for growth. Think about how we learn as children. When we're learning to walk, we fall constantly. Nobody scolds us for falling. Instead, we're encouraged to get back up and try again. That's because falling is seen as part of the learning process. But as we grow older, we develop a fear of failure. We start to believe that falling means we're not good enough. That belief holds us back more than failure ever could. Failure is also a sign that you're pushing yourself, that you're stepping out of your comfort zone. If you're not failing at something, you're probably not challenging yourself enough. Success doesn't come from avoiding failure, it comes from embracing it and using it to refine your skills, strategies, and mindset. I want to share a story about a company that redefined failure. Pixar, one of the most successful animation studios in the world, has a unique approach to creativity. They embrace failure as a necessary part of innovation. During the production of every movie, they go through hundreds of iterations and many ideas don't work out, but instead of seeing those missteps as failures, they view them as opportunities to make the film better. Their willingness to fail is what allows them to create groundbreaking stories that resonate with audiences worldwide. Let's bring this closer to home. Think about a time when you failed at something. Maybe it was a project, a relationship, or a personal goal. At the time, it probably felt terrible. But looking back, what did you learn from that experience? How did it shape you? Chances are it taught you something valuable, something you wouldn't have learned otherwise. Failure also teaches resilience. When you face setbacks and keep going, you build mental toughness. You prove to yourself that you can handle adversity. Each time you bounce back, you become stronger and more capable. That's why some of the most successful people in the world have the most failures under their belts. They didn't let failure define them, they let it refine them. Here's another way to think about it: failure is feedback. But feedback is neutral. It's not inherently good or bad. It's just information. It's what you do with that information that matters. You can choose to let it discourage you, or you can choose to let it guide you. The choice is always yours. Reframing failure doesn't mean you should aim to fail. It means you should aim to try, knowing that failure might happen along the way. It's about having the courage to take risks and the humility to learn from your mistakes. When you approach life with that mindset, failure stops being something to fear and starts being something to embrace. Let's talk about leadership for a moment. Great leaders don't avoid failure, they create environments where failure is seen as a natural part of growth. They encourage their teams to experiment, take risks, and learn from their mistakes. By doing so, they foster innovation and continuous improvement. Take a moment to reflect on how you view failure in your own life. Do you see it as something to avoid, or do you see it as a necessary step toward growth? Shifting your perspective might be uncomfortable at first, but it's one of the most powerful changes you can make. Failure doesn't mean you're not good enough. It means you're courageous enough to try. It means you're in the arena, putting yourself out there and taking steps toward your goals. And every time you fail, you're one step closer to success. Let me remind you of something important: the only true failure is giving up. As long as you're learning and moving forward, you're not failing, you're progressing. Surround yourself with the right people. The people you surround yourself with are one of the most significant influences on your life, your growth, and your success. Whether you realize it or not, the relationships you cultivate either push you forward or hold you back. The right people don't just support you, they challenge you, inspire you, and hold you accountable. They lift you when you're down, and they celebrate your wins as if they were their own. If you want to grow into the person you're meant to be, start by surrounding yourself with the right people. I think about this: you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Their attitudes, habits, and values seep into your life, often without you noticing. If you're surrounded by people who are negative, complacent, or unsupportive, it's going to be harder for you to stay motivated and focused. But when you're surrounded by people who are driven, kind, and growth-oriented, their energy fuels your progress. The right people don't necessarily agree with you all the time. In fact, they challenge you to think differently. They're not afraid to tell you the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, because they care about your growth more than your comfort. The wrong people, on the other hand, might tell you what you want to hear instead of what you need to hear. They might discourage you from taking risks because they're projecting their own fears onto you. Let me tell you a story. Imagine someone trying to climb a mountain. They have a team with them, and each person's role is crucial. If the team members are supportive, skilled, and motivated, the climber has a much better chance of reaching the summit. But if the team members are distracted, unprepared, or uncommitted, they become a liability. The climber might not even make it halfway. That's how life works too. The people around you either help you climb higher or pull you down. Choosing the right people starts with understanding your values and your goals. Who are the people that align with what matters most to you? Who are the people that inspire you to be better? Those are the ones you want in your inner circle. It's not just about finding people who support you, it's about finding people you can also support. Relationships are a two-way street. The right people aren't just there for you, they also value what you bring to their lives. They grow because of your presence, just as you grow because of theirs. Think about the concept of trust. The right people are those you can trust completely, they have your back, and you have theirs. Trust doesn't mean they'll always agree with you or avoid hard conversations. It means they'll always act in your best interest, even when it's difficult. Trust is the foundation of any meaningful relationship. Now, this doesn't mean cutting everyone out of your life who doesn't meet some arbitrary standard. It's not about being judgmental or dismissive, it's about being intentional. Some relationships might need to change, not because the other person is bad, but because the relationship isn't helping either of you grow. There's a difference between surrounding yourself with people who are comfortable and surrounding yourself with people who are courageous. The comfortable ones will let you stay where you are, even when they know you're capable of more. The courageous ones will push you to step outside your comfort zone. They'll challenge you to take risks, to grow, and to become the best version of yourself. Imagine you're on a ship in the middle of the ocean. If your crew is skilled, focused, and supportive, you'll navigate even the toughest storms. But if your crew is distracted, negative, or unprepared, even calm waters become dangerous. Your journey depends on the people you choose to have on board. The right people also bring out the best in you. They help you see your strengths when you're doubting yourself. They remind you of your purpose when you've lost your way. They hold you accountable when you need it and celebrate your progress along the way. One of the hardest lessons to learn is that not everyone is meant to be part of your journey forever. Some relationships are seasonal. They serve a purpose for a time, but eventually you grow in different directions. That's okay. It doesn't mean those relationships weren't valuable. It just means you're making space for the relationships that will support your next chapter. Here's a question to ask yourself: who inspires you? Who makes you want to be better? Who challenges you to grow? These are the people you should seek out and spend more time with. At the same time, ask yourself who drains your energy, who discourages your dreams, who holds you back. Those are the relationships you might need to reevaluate. The right people don't compete with you, they collaborate with you. They don't bring jealousy or resentment into the relationship. Instead, they bring encouragement and support. They understand that your success doesn't diminish theirs, and their success doesn't diminish yours. This brings us to the concept of shared vision. The right people don't just support your goals, they share a vision for the kind of life, work, or community you want to create. That shared vision creates a powerful bond, one that fuels mutual growth and success. Surrounding yourself with the right people doesn't happen by accident. It requires intentionality, courage, and sometimes tough decisions. But when you commit to building those relationships, you create an environment where you can thrive. Lead with empathy for yourself. Leading with empathy for yourself isn't just a self-help mantra. It's a vital practice for growth, resilience, and long-term success. Too often, we overlook our own needs, our emotions, and our well-being in the pursuit of our goals. We push ourselves, sometimes to the point of exhaustion, because we think that's the only way to succeed. But true leadership begins with empathy for yourself. If you don't understand your own needs, limits, and desires, how can you ever expect to lead others effectively? The first step in leading with empathy for yourself is recognizing that you're human. You have your strengths, but you also have your weaknesses. You experience joy, but you also feel frustration, self-doubt, and fear. You have goals and aspirations, but you also need time to rest, reflect, and recharge. Embracing your humanity, with all its imperfections, is the foundation of leading with empathy. When you acknowledge that you're not invincible, you give yourself permission to be compassionate toward yourself. Too often we think of leadership as something that's external, something that's about guiding others. But leadership starts with how you lead yourself. It's about understanding your own emotions, needs, and motivations. It's about acknowledging that just like anyone else, you need support, care, and patience. When you lead with empathy for yourself, you allow yourself the space to make mistakes, to grow, and to be imperfect. And by doing so, you become a better leader to those around you. Empathy begins with understanding. When you lead with empathy for yourself, you take the time to reflect on your own emotions. What are you feeling right now? What's driving those emotions? Are you stressed? Are you exhausted? Are you frustrated? Instead of pushing those feelings aside or suppressing them, you sit with them. You understand them. You ask yourself why you're feeling what you're feeling, and you give yourself the space to process those emotions without judgment. When you can be empathetic toward your own emotions, you start to recognize your limits. You understand that you can't be on all the time. You can't always be productive, focused, or energetic. And that's okay. Giving yourself permission to rest, recharge, and take care of your mental and physical health is just as important as achieving your goals. If you ignore your own needs for too long, you'll burn out. You'll lose sight of your purpose, and ultimately you'll be less effective in everything you do. Leading with empathy for yourself also means being kind to yourself. How often do we criticize ourselves when things don't go as planned? How often do we call ourselves failures or not good enough after a setback? That kind of self-talk is damaging and it's far from productive. When you lead with empathy, you replace that self-criticism with kindness. You acknowledge that mistakes are a natural part of the process. And instead of berating yourself, you ask, what can I learn from this? You see setbacks as opportunities to grow, not as reasons to beat yourself up. It's also essential to remember that empathy for yourself isn't a one-time action, it's a practice. It's something you need to do every single day. Just as you would offer a friend support when they're struggling, you need to offer that same level of care and understanding to yourself. Sometimes that means taking a break when you're feeling overwhelmed. Sometimes it means asking for help when you need it. And other times it means saying no to things that drain your energy or don't align with your values. In leadership, we often talk about the importance of vulnerability. Vulnerability is about being honest with yourself and others, about showing up as you are, imperfections and all. When you lead with empathy for yourself, you embrace your vulnerability. You're not afraid to admit when you don't have all the answers, when you're struggling, or when you need support. By being vulnerable, you give others permission to do the same, creating an environment where everyone feels seen and heard. Another key aspect of leading with empathy for yourself is self-awareness. You need to know who you are, what you need, and what you want. This requires reflection and honest self-assessment. Are you living in alignment with your values? Are you making decisions that support your long-term well-being, or are you sacrificing your happiness for short-term gains? Self-awareness allows you to make choices that support your overall health and growth. It enables you to recognize when you're getting off track, when you're sacrificing too much, or when you're not being true to yourself. Leading with empathy for yourself also means setting boundaries. You can't pour from an empty cup. If you're constantly giving to others without taking care of your own needs, you'll eventually burn out. It's essential to set clear boundaries both with yourself and with others to protect your time, energy, and mental health. Boundaries might mean saying no to extra work, carving out time for self-care, or creating space for hobbies that help you relax and recharge. Setting boundaries is not selfish, it's necessary for maintaining your ability to show up as the best version of yourself. Lastly, leading with empathy for yourself requires a mindset shift. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that in order to be successful, you need to be perfect, but perfectionism is a myth, and chasing it only leads to frustration and burnout. When you lead with empathy, you shift your focus from perfection to progress. You recognize that growth is a journey, not a destination, and that mistakes and setbacks are part of that journey. Remember, leadership is not just about what you do for others. It's also about what you do for yourself. You can't lead others effectively if you don't first lead yourself with empathy, compassion, and care. By prioritizing your own well-being, you create the foundation for sustainable success, personal growth, and a positive impact on those around you. Visualize your legacy. When you do that, don't just imagine what you'll leave behind in terms of material success or accolades. Think about the people you'll impact, the changes you'll inspire, and the ripple effect your actions will have on the world. The key here is that legacy isn't just a distant, abstract concept that we think about when we're older. It starts today, with every decision, every word, and every action you take. Start by imagining yourself looking back on your life at the end of your career or even your life. What kind of person would you want to have been? What kind of values would you want to have instilled in others? How would you have influenced the world? Imagine your impact on your family, your friends, and even those who will never know your name. This isn't a moment for modesty. This is where you are allowed to think big, to envision a life that has purpose and meaning beyond just surviving. The first thing you need to understand is that your legacy isn't about you. It never was. When we focus on our own legacy in the traditional sense, we think of monuments, plaques, and awards. We think of personal success, maybe a prestigious job title, financial wealth, or recognition from peers. But in reality, the most impactful legacies are the ones that don't look like they belong to us at all. They are the ones that live on in the actions, thoughts, and lives of the people we leave behind. It's about what we have given others, not what we've kept for ourselves. Your legacy is what you leave behind in others. It's the wisdom you share, the kindness you offer, and the integrity with which you lead. The way people talk about you after you're gone, how they remember you, how they choose to live their lives because of something you did or said is the true measure of your legacy. It is a reflection of the values and behaviors you modeled for others. So begin to ask yourself, what do you want that conversation to be like? How do you want to be remembered? Not just as a leader in your professional field, but as a person, as a mentor, as a friend, as a family member. How did you show up for the people who needed you? What kind of energy did you bring into the room? Were you the kind of person who helped others rise, or were you focused on competing with them? Your actions today are building that future. Every conversation, every meeting, every moment you spend with someone, this is where your legacy is being formed. It's not enough to simply do good things occasionally and hope that they'll be remembered. You need to live your values every single day consistently. It's not about what you do in isolated moments of glory or recognition. It's about what you do when no one is looking. It's about how you treat people when there is nothing to gain from it. Your legacy is built in the smallest interactions. You have to remember that people don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. That is at the core of a legacy that has an impact. Leadership isn't about being the smartest person in the room or the loudest voice. Leadership is about being the most supportive, the most trustworthy, the most willing to help others grow and succeed. It's about helping others discover their own potential. You cannot leave a positive legacy without lifting others up. If you are the kind of person who empowers others to do their best work, to become the best version of themselves, then your influence will live on in everything they do. The next thing to remember is that your legacy doesn't need to be grand or monumental. It doesn't need to be some huge world-changing event. Legacy is often made up of a series of small, consistent actions over time. A legacy is often built in the quiet moments when you show up for someone when they're at their lowest, or when you offer a piece of advice that changes their direction in life. It's in the daily decisions to act with integrity and make the world a better place. It's in the example you set for others to follow. Consider the people who shaped you. They didn't change your life with one grand gesture. No, they did it by being consistent, by showing up time and again, by living their principles. That is how they shaped your worldview. Now, it's your turn to be that person for someone else. To lead by example, to show the next generation that it's possible to live with honor, to work hard for what you believe in, and to treat others with kindness and respect. Think about the conversations you've had with people who have made a lasting impact on you. Maybe it was a teacher, a mentor, or a friend. They didn't necessarily tell you that you had to change, they simply showed you a better way. They challenged your assumptions, they encouraged you, and they believed in you even when you didn't believe in yourself. That belief was contagious. And that is what you can do for others. Your legacy is the impact you have on others and your ability to help them become the best versions of themselves. You may not always see the immediate results of your efforts, but trust that they are there. Seeds that are planted today might not sprout for years. And even then, you may never know the full extent of the impact you've made. That's okay. Your job is to plant the seeds. You cannot control the outcome, you can only control your actions. And that's what your legacy is about, doing the right thing, even when no one is looking, even when there's no guarantee that your efforts will lead to the success you hope for. When you start visualizing your legacy, you begin to understand that you are not working toward fame, wealth, or personal recognition. You are working toward something much more enduring: the growth of others, the positive transformation of the world around you, and the creation of a culture where people lift each other up, where kindness and integrity are valued above all else. Remember that legacy isn't about what happens after you're gone. It's about what happens while you're still here. Legacy is built through the decisions you make every day. Legacy is built in every conversation, in every action, and in every person you inspire. It is not a thing to be achieved, it is a life to be lived. And the more you focus on living your values, on empowering others, and on creating a culture of trust, respect, and integrity, the stronger your legacy will become. So as you go forward, carry that vision of your legacy with you. Let it inform your actions and shape your decisions. Let it remind you that you have the power to create something meaningful, not just for yourself, but for the world around you. Your legacy is your gift to the future. The question is, what are you going to leave behind? What will you have contributed to the world that will outlast your time here? This is a journey that will take a lifetime. And the most powerful thing about it is that you can start today. You can start right now with the decisions you make, with the way you show up, with the values you choose to live by. And when you do, you'll find that your legacy is already taking shape, one moment at a time.